All right, so I don't like to get animated. I'm a guy holding a camera in public. It's not my place. But when you see something on the commercial, it's these people. They have like an accordion. Oh, great prop! And so like they're elders. So the accordion with polka music was more renowned in the elders. So it was this, and then the end scene is, of course, they pull out of the driveway, and when you're inside of a car, you can't really move around, and so they try as hard as they can to put on like these puppy dog eyes and have like a smile that, oh, the good old times. But it's just this, all they're doing is sitting in a car, and so they're trying to put on this, whole show, and the outro is so distasteful that this is why it's different than like if you're working. He's not working anymore. These are people who are retired, took a sweetheart deal for God knows what. But in relating that to the livelihood, like the next blank will be the biggest of your life. You can say this for anything, and it's not a paradox because literally that's how time works. It's always changed. But if you're looking back in time from what has changed, the size of a zygote, a human was the size of every human, the size of an ant. And so when you like crush an ant and it turns into a little ball and it gets out and like of the ball, because it was in a fetal position supposedly, when you're attributing these dynamics of physicalities to like ants or what have you, it's so interesting to denote that how ants are like the size of humans when they're the size of a zygote. So it's nothing to say that they aren't related, because in that faction they are. And so with that subset within the faction of a full-size adult, the difference of the two is equal to just like one envelope of your brain. That dynamic of curvature is enough information in it to say it's relatable to the attributes of a zygote when someone's the size of that, because it's so minuscule, but nevertheless it's the entirety of a body's anatomy. And so that's one way in looking at it. This is what people don't look at. And so the difference of that, the difference of injuries, what's that to a zygote? A lot of things with inflammation is like bug bites, or if you got bruises, and then poison ivy, rashes. Rashes can envelope up in patches of little tiny bug bites. And there was this one girl, she was itching her arms and she had eczema, and she like would look at me kind of as if like, do you know what's going on? And she just kept itching. It looked like poison ivy, little bumps on the inside of her elbows. And so there's that girl. Another girl who was blind. We don't have to explain what being blind is, but she would like grab my arm and I'd have to guide her. So these two place markers for what a zygote could go through in experiencing life or death is something that is attributed to humanizing what it is to be the size of something. And so, wait 1 second. It's just the pageantry when you're sitting in a car, or you're saying you own an entire building and you have to buy something to stay. You might own the whole building, but when you broadcast it, and it's like a selling point with all these banners outside, and like banners explaining the history of the building, it's like you're coaxing inside of something. For an example, a different commercial, it had wanting to sell people OCD remedies. So the person in the speaker, they tried sounding the narrator, very interesting and deep and philosophical, so it would draw someone with OCD into the commercialism. And at the very end, it was like, and if you have OCD, you can call blank, 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 blank. So there's that aspect. Another one is with muscles, the physicality. The biggest muscles on humans are thighs. So in good positioning, and you can take it out. So I'm like Pee Wee Herman for a second. And with good positioning of your thighs, and you can make for weak points in your body be less strenuous. And so this is the case in basically every motion, but especially motions that are wide and powerful. Because if you've got weak areas, they might subject to clicking or other haywire activity. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's still recording good. What the fuck was the other shit? Because with the ant, people, they ruin ants all the time, and it's no sweat off of anyone's back because you can't get tried in a court of law for hurting an ant because it's considered a pest. But how much are they considered a pest? Is a question that they ask. How safe is public and public safety, and the regulation of this is equivalent to someone having a building and saying you can't stay here unless you purchase something, but treating the whole building like the entire world, and then the entire world as a hazard as opposed to a pest, not being part of animal cruelty. There's this giant gap where lives can be taken as quickly as zygotes when things are too hard to handle and too hot to handle and too hard to see. But here's a great carry-on where my life was almost just taken. And I don't say this lightly because it had been the case the last, I don't know, every single day I've ridden a bike through town is these cars. I don't really blame them because I'm on a curb going above the speed of death. And so if you don't have a car and you're on a curb, the curb ends at this point and you're crossing on a crosswalk, the cars, they bleed out over the edge of the area where they pull out so that they can look at the road better, because there might be turnbuckles in the road where there's blind spots and you can't see unless you're pulling out quick. Believe me, I know, I've been one of them. But if you're not big enough inside of a car, you're on a bike, they aren't taking time to look on the curb. Well, they're already over it. So they've got bigger fish to fry with not getting their car hit by cars. And so much is the case of me feeling almost pest-like in this scenario. And to explain what animal cruelty is pest, you would be hard-pressed because there are no rules. And so if the change in humans are, we have to explain what changes in human nature. So I could stomp on this and that might get some activists pissed because it's more than one ant. But that so much is the case when you're trying to explain the entire world at large, but at what cost and what the stake. And in the modern day and age, it's all this information. Almost half, if not more than half, the internet is ran by published things that are not human. So what the hell is it?